Hello and welcome to the MIT_battery exclusive low percent Hollow Knight run submitted for SGDQ 2020. This is a video that I recorded about an hour ago. Welcome, we're playing on Steel Soul because we believe in ourselves. That means if we die, we're dead for good because you cannot respawn. In a marathon environment, we would not do this. So for those of you wondering what low percent is, it means that you love a game so much you want to play as little of it as possible, as fast as you can, just to prove it. So for those of us familiar with the any percent category, there are 5 percentages we do not get, so we end up completing the game with 11% completion. The percents we do not get is the Mothwing Cloak, which is the dash ability a lot of people are familiar with. We do not get the dash. We do not get the Shaman Stone, which is a very useful charm that increases our damage output. We do not get the Gro's Mother, which is a boss that we avoid, and we don't fight Hornet, who gives us the dash. That's about the long and short of it, but for a game that's designed almost solely around that dash mechanic, it means that everything we do is going to be more difficult than it ought to be, and very, very unintended. So the first 7-8 minutes of the run is just optimal platforming, moving around, doing inventory drops, as you saw in the beginning of King's Pass. It uncaps our fall speed, like right here we'll do it so we don't get a hard fall. Can act a lot quicker, but it really starts going off the rails at about 7 minutes in. So jumping here in Dirtmouth is slightly faster than walking because right now it's in this sort of cutscene kind of thing where you walk a little bit slower than walking speed, but when you jump, you maintain walking speed. So another deviation from the 80% route is that we actually get the Stag Station, which is a kind of warp point for us, way earlier. So instead of getting it on the way to Gro's Mother, since we don't even kill Gro's Mother, we start collecting Geo immediately. There's 22 in that cache. We get the Geo from the kill room coming up, and we need 50 before we get into the Green Path Split. The flies there are RNG, and they're very mean. You can hit 1, 2, 3, or 0 of them. I listed them in order of percentage-wise that I think would happen. So thankfully this is a recorded video, so you know that I don't die. But being at 1 mask for this long, especially in a mode where death is permanent, a little bit stressful. So I'm still shaking out the nerves from the run, you know? So you'll notice that I actually had to kill that small Vengefly because we had 49 Geo, which means that we wouldn't have been able to buy the Stag coming up over here. So here's the Stag. It is one of only a few things we're going to spend money on, because we don't have the luxury of spending money on things to make things easier for us, because it's low percent. Thankfully, the Stag Stations don't count as a percentage, which means that the ones that we get for faster movement don't count against us. The only things that do count for percentages for us are the skills we're going to get and the couple of required bosses in order to get the 3 Dreamers. If you've never played this game casually and you're wondering what this is, because I'm probably going to send this video to a whole lot of people, because, you know, it showcases the run, lets them know what I'm up to and all. In this game, you play as this little guy. You're not the Hollow Knight, you're kind of a Hollow Knight. There's 3 people who are asleep. We're going to get something that wakes them up. We're going to wake them up. We're going to fight a guy that looks drastically similar to us, and then we're going to call it. And you're probably not going to know what goes on, but that's speedruns. Another thing people might not be familiar with, even if I haven't seen any percent, is that this first boss over here is by no means required. So we take the free heal while he's pounding the ground like that, and we just break away the gate and leave. There's some extra platforming, and then we get to one of the most useful things that we'll have, almost the only useful thing we'll have the entire run, the Vengeful Spirit. It's a fireball spell, and while most people remember it as like what gets them into Green Path, because you can kill the boulders with it, you have to do it to get out of this place too. I've long forgotten the name of many things because I keep playing in Chinese, because it's 20 seconds faster, and I don't know Chinese. But as in most good speedruns, it's not just a weapon. We've repurposed the Vengeful Spirit Fireball spell as a movement mechanic. And it's the only movement mechanic we have access to for a while, because we do get the wall cling, so we can wall jump in about 10 minutes, or, 12 on these splits. But by the time we get there, a whole lot of stuff has already happened. Battery, why run low percent instead of any percent? Well, don't just take my word for it. Shoutouts to Tombo for that double board break, he taught me how to do it. Don't take my word for it, take every other Hollow Knight community member, like Fireborn, who when I asked him to run this category said, no. Or Visuals, who said, that sounds like negative fun. Or Mon, who said, I don't think so, when I asked if he'd ever run low percent. See, a lot of people may be wondering why people don't run low percent. And it's not clear yet. It will be clear soon. I will say that it's a great deal harder, even casually, than any percent. So I would encourage you, if you're watching this video because I've sent it to you and you know that I speedrun and all that, or you are verifying this for GDQ right now, if you like Hollow Knight, try out the low percent route. For the love of God, please don't try to do it fast at first. But try it out. It's a really fun challenge run. It's a way different way of playing the game. So here we go, on our way to Green Path, and right after we get in the door is the first major route deviation, because a lot of people know that what you do immediately here is get the dash, and we're obviously not going to do that. So you get to see how we get to the next few areas without it. So here's a 1.2 exclusive. If you move to the right and screen scroll, the fireball stays on the screen. You can hear it hit multiple times. So you can't do that on current patch. We play on 1.2. Here's the first of many fireball skips, which does exist in other routes. It's a small optimization since it's like 3 or 4 seconds faster than going around. We fell in the spikes before, which is why we're 12 seconds behind. It was kind of funny. Another thing to note is that I'm actually not doing as many turnarounds over here to get soul, because you don't need as much soul in this category. So what happens 2 rooms from now is the fireball skip to go over to fight Hornet, but we don't do that. So we're not going to kill these birds, we're not going to stock up on soul, even though I am at 1 mask in a permadeath mode. So if this was a marathon, I obviously would take the time to heal right now. And maybe not wait on the ledge instead of inventory dropping. So we didn't go left, instead we're going down and to the right, and the fun begins. Shoutouts to this guy, who you squish. It's one of the most satisfying parts of the run. Don't know why. I love it though. So at 1 mass, just pogoing off some spikes, all good. So there's going to be a little hallway, and we're going to drop down again, and at the end of it, there's going to be a pool of acid. So in this game, there is a way to go into the acid. We obviously never get it. You don't even get it at any percent, actually. But it's completely RNG. I believe it's based on a global timer, but I don't have evidence of that yet, about whether or not the thing that's in the acid is to the left or to the right. So if it's to the right, we get to pogo off of it like this, and actually do take a safety heal. If it's to the left, then we have to use 3 fireballs to skip it because it's way too long to wait. So it saves us a little bit of consternation and a tiny bit of time if it's to the right there. But it's not much of a problem because you see there are a lot of these smaller jellyfish that allow you to re-up on soul. Another big difference between low percent and any percent is that in any percent, if you fail a trick, most of the time there's a backup that loses you a little bit of time. In this category, sometimes there's no backup, which means that tricks are acquired, and this is one of them for the current route. So there's a 3 fireball skip in order to get into fungal wastes over here, and it's not that bad if you're used to fireball skips, but it's definitely a lot tighter than the ones in other categories. Safety heal. So you'll notice this gap is also too long, but this guy is just conveniently in the middle here. A lot of things in low percent that you won't notice is that things that look very easy and simple are by no means easy and simple. This jump right here is a prime example. I actually had to practice that. Like, go into the practice hack, make a save state, and do it 100 times in a row, and still fail it sometimes, and it still kills some of my runs if I'm playing very riskily. because you're supposed to have dash over there, so you need to be on the very, very edge of that platform to make the jump. And yeah, we're at 2 masks, but those explosions that are being spit out right now that you can hear, those do 2 masks of damage. So if one hits you, your run's dead, if you have 2 masks. You probably shouldn't have 2 masks. But that's why this is a PB, not a marathon video. We go up and we get to these shrooms. Charm knot shrooms. People just call them knot shrooms. There's a set way that you can kill these every time that's very, very safe. You'll notice that our nail is slightly longer than their headbang attack. So it isn't that risky. As long as you have like an extra mask just to feel better, it's alright. Especially because it doesn't matter how much masks you have going into this room. Because the charm notch we just picked up also does not count as a percent, which is good because that's the category, but it does refill your health. So we won't be equipping any charms because we won't have literally any charms this entire time. But it's nice that it refills our health because that way we can go through the game. We don't have to no-hit the entire section with the jellyfish and then leading up to it. This room's a lot slower without dash. Say goodbye to Cloth. We never see her again. If you get a very early bounce on these mushrooms, you can just keep holding left and pogoing over and over again. It's not that tight, but it feels really cool when you get it. Plus, they make a very satisfying noise. So, this is one of my favorite parts of the run. If you look over here, this thing didn't have a hitbox. We jumped and we overlapped it, but nothing bad happened, because a lot of things in 1.2 were suggestions rather than rules. That low percent explosion pogo setup is required in this because we don't have the dash to go the other way, which means we can't actually get over the acid pit that blocks us. So, in any percent, yeah, you can take the 20-second time loss and go around, but you can do no such thing. It also means that this Mantis pogo is also required unless you fireball skip across every single one of them. The fun part is that usually it's a small time loss if you don't get it, but in low percent, you soft lock. Because if you run out of soul and you run out of Mantis things, there's no way to get up and there's no way to get over, which means that you have to quit out to a bench or restart the game, because it would take way too long to get over here. So it's effectively a run killer. Can't imagine why no one runs this super, super fun category. But you know what? It's really grown on me. At first I said I wouldn't put any time into it, and then I said that I would hate run it out of spite. And now I think that it's a really, really neat, unique way of playing the game. I understand why a lot of people don't grind it and why a lot of people don't like it, but I feel like it's a lot different than other categories because the way you play has to be totally different. Instead of shredding through bosses, you're under-equipped for even small enemies, and like platforming is way more difficult and way more interesting. There's actually a free heal behind that gate, but since we have 4 masks, the max amount we can take is basically like 2 over here if we don't get a fast cycle on the way into Deep Nest. If you notice, we'll use the momentum from these mushrooms in order to hit down, and then we'll hit up again, and then it will change our momentum. And it allows us to like skip over that little acid section, not need to go all the way down and bounce again. We don't save this grub, I'm sorry. It's much slower than the one in Deep Nest. I know I'm a monster. Another benefit of low percent is you get to see Deep Nest. Like, a lot more of it. So, if you do these rooms fast, there's a way to do it without taking any damage. You go to the right over here and you drop down, and these things are always on a global cycle that is the same. Which means if you're fast enough to make this and fast enough to jump down, you don't get hit. So even if you're at 1 mask over here, it's alright, because we actually are on our way to the hot springs area to take the bench. And we're not taking the bench to refill our health like we were doing with the charm notch from before. We're taking the bench because we're actually going to reset to it quite a few times in order to help with the routing. In avoiding Gruzmother, which is definitely not a hard boss, we actually have to go all the way backwards through a lot of things and then go save Sly from underneath. So you'll see all that coming up, you know, in another half hour or so, 20 minutes or so. So it doesn't matter what we're at here in terms of mass, because we take this bench. It's also very important to note that we do not take any other benches unless we are about to go fight the Watcher Knights, because resetting to that saves us a whole lot of time. So if you accidentally bench in between here and there, you basically kill your run. Lucky for us, the tram pass is also not a percentage, so it'll be a primary means of transportation, aside from those stags. Of course, after we have the tram pass, the stag says something witty about trusting that mechanical contraption, but luckily, I can't understand him this time. So, he can throw shade all he wants, but I can't hear him. Ow. So you'll also notice that our geo count is 191 right now. So you'll know from the any percent route and any like playing of this game that like the things that we buy in this are basically the lantern, which I will elaborate on in a second, some stag stations, and the gate in order to get into Crystal Peaks, and that is it. That's all we buy. So we need 250 geo. There's a couple of ways to get it. The fastest way to get it is to kill the things that are over here that are spitting smaller things, because they drop a whole lot of geo each, and it makes the next segment a lot safer if we're not also trying to farm for geo. So getting a little bit while we're on our way to this tram pass, or right afterwards, that's why we're fireballing and doing a couple of hits over here to try to play it a little safe. Of course, I accidentally killed that one. Now is a really good time to start talking about that lantern that I mentioned. So, the lantern that we get, the Lumafly lantern, we don't get it so that we can see in the dark. Unfortunately, I would love that. We get it so that we can open up a gate that we cannot press the up button next to unless we have the Lumafly lantern. And the reason that I say that and that we do not use it to see is because the fastest way to beat this game with only 11% completion is to go completely in the dark for about 2 minutes out the other side and unlock the tram station so that we can go to it later on our way to get the Dream Nail, because we can't use the regular shade skip to get through it, because in order to use that shade skip in the any percent, you have to fight the Grozmother, which is a percentage. So we go the very long way. Down, 2, 3, wait, up, 2, 3, up, tink, tink, wait, up, slash down, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 2, 2, wait, jump, left. First dark room. Another thing about these dark rooms, you can sort of see, if you hit the spikes, you respawn at the very center, at the very start of the room where you entered it. Down, up. So you notice we're at 237, so I do need a little bit of geo, and there are these spiders that drop 18, so I'll be fireballing to get things out of the way and make sure that we have enough. So we have enough geo, we have enough mask, we don't need any soul for this section because there aren't any fireball skips. Already fireballed left. Relax. Down, up, left. There's going to be a floor with spikes that we're going to have to pogo over, and then there's going to be a wall. Now we want to fireball left and go left as soon as possible and jump when the floor bakes and do another pogo. We got really, really good with that that pogo over that thing, because if it would have knocked us into the spikes, it would have been like a full 30-second time loss, and the other spiders have already spawned. So not only is it a time loss, but it's also a lot more dangerous, because going through that room not the first time means all the floors are already broken, and all the spiders are already awake. The position of that little guy is also RNG, and you can hit him into the spikes. The reason we hesitate on the right side of that wall there is because you can get some cling storage and hit the spikes by sliding down the wall, not all the way up against it. I hate this jump. Hate that jump. It's not that hard, but you have to go against the side of the platform in order to get enough distance in order to do it. That jump right there was another one that is deceptively difficult. So unless you're on the center of that platform moving right and that little tiny hop up, you don't quite catch the ledge of the right side of the platform and you fall. So that's the first time you'll see us look up and down when something is happening, like a bell or a gate. And the reason is that when the animation is playing, if you look up or down, it actually short-circuits the animation and makes it pop up faster. So there's two things you can get. Fast Bell is what we just got, which means that it popped up a lot faster than normal. Insta Bell is when you interrupt the second animation, and it saves another half second or second over Fast Bell. So This is one of the chillest parts of the run, because all you kind of have to do, especially if you have more than one mask, is hold right, and don't take any benches because it will kill your run. So, especially after that series of dark rooms, this is the first time in the run that you get to breathe since about 7 minutes in, when we had to start doing all that unnecessary platforming and, you know, repurposing the fireball and dark rooms. I have sat on that bench before. It's a very, very sad time. Apparently I'm mad at all the lights. That, and there's a really long segment here where the only thing to do is hold right. I mean, not that long, like, 20, 30 seconds. Pretty long for a speedrun, I guess. If you accidentally start a jump, or you're just landing on a jump when you activate this, especially on the 1.2 patch, you can actually go into the falling animation forever and hardlock your game, which has happened to me on pace. That's why you'll see a lot of runners, especially in any percent, they won't even dash over here. They'll jump onto the left side of this and very carefully walk over, because it only has to happen to you once for you to start being careful in every run. So we take an intentional fall here, because this ghost moth, which is going to give us the thing to wake up our 3 friends, falls slightly faster if you take an intentional fall there. So you're losing like a second RTA in order to save a second of in-game time. This actually goes off of a loadless timer, that way people can't buy really powerful computers and buy their way to the top of the leaderboard. It's the only section, I think, that's actually easier than any percent, because in any percent, it's kind of stressful and you can fall, because you're, like, dashing between all these platforms. And, in this, you just kind of hold right, and you jump every once in a while, because that's the limit of how fast you can go. So you can't really play it any more risky or different than that. So you'll notice that we cannot do the slug, like, slide along the floor thing, which is the thing that I don't like about low percent, because I kind of like the anti-percent where you're sliding along the ground, that it looks really funny. But we just quit out to that one bench that we took a really long time ago in the hot springs, because we need to take the tram in order to go to Watcher Knights, because it's our only access to City of Tears, because killing the False Knight from before, remember that gate that we broke? If we actually killed him and then grabbed the City Crest that he dropped, that would have been a percentage, and that's a no-no in this category. So instead of going the way that you're supposed to, we have to go all the way around from Deep Nest. We take a few of these damage boosts, which is totally fine, because there's actually a bench on the inside of the tram that we're going to take for safety, and, you know, it's a lot faster by maybe 3 seconds or so, total in that one room, to just damage tank through the middle hallway. So, if you factor that, you know, benching takes 2 seconds, it's a small time save, but it's also nice because that way it refills all your masks in case you accidentally took damage and you're planning on it. 1.2. That scared me when I was playing. Every once in a while, if 2 things happen at the same time, the game kind of freezes for a second. In fact, sometimes when 1 thing happens at a time, the game freezes for a second, but usually pausing it will fix it. These guys are RNG. I always want them to behave here. You can tell that you're not supposed to be here without the dash, because there isn't a good way to get across these platforms right now. But it's definitely the tamer of the sections where, like, you feel like the game wants you to have dash, but you don't have it. So you only took 1 mask of damage. We're going to do some creative platforming to get up to here. This is actually one of my favorite parts of the run. It's really interesting, and you don't get to see it in other categories unless you're, like, doing the randomizer or something. I go the left side up here, under does not. Also, while I'm at it, just in case someone actually is watching this, shoutouts to Hamathity, who is the current world record holder by about a minute after this run that I just put together. And I am second so far. Really, really nice guy, does a lot of rando stuff, catches stream all the time and all. And he put a lot of material together for low percent before anyone cared about it, and he was the only one who tried to more or less optimize it. So a lot of the clips that I was watching of these dark rooms and the fireball skips and like how to actually route it out and what's different than any percent, I used a lot of his material and it was really, really useful. Shoutouts to that one vase allowing us to skip the double jump. Because if that one vase wasn't in that one position for us to get up here, since this is required, because waking up your 3 buddies is required to complete the game, there'd just be no way for us to not need to go all the way and get the Monarch Wings. This is another dark room, but it's way, way faster and way, way easier than the one we were just in. So notice me get a little bit of extra soul here. I did accidentally get hit, and we're just shy of being able to heal twice, so I'm actually only going to heal once. Because... little known fact, or I guess widely known fact, if you're a speedrunner or have played this game a whole lot, there's a chandelier up here, and if you drop it, it kills one of the Watcher Knights for you. I did not know this in my casual playthrough, but fighting 5 of these guys is a whole lot better than fighting 6 of them, especially when you're in low percent. I'll shut up for a second so you just sort of watch the fight, and it'll stand for itself, because we don't have the dash and we don't have the Shaman Stone. So we're under-equipped and have no movement. So this guy, not that hard. When the others start waking up, it's going to be a little bit different. So you'll notice we're not going for doubles the same way that you do if you have Dash and Shaman Stone, because it's not as viable of a strategy. So you gotta play it a little bit safer. That one doubled. Remember that thing I said about 2 things happening at the same time? It happens a lot in this fight. The first time I figured the game was frozen and never going to unpause and killed the run, but I found out afterwards that if you pause for a second, it gives you control back of your character, so it's not actually a hard lock. It's just very scary. Also, shoutouts to these splits. That was not a gold by about 0.1 seconds, so we very nearly golded that split as well. For some of the people watching that don't normally watch speedruns, since I know I'm going to send the video to a couple of you, the splits that you're seeing over there, when it says plus and minus, and things are red, green, or gold, that's about the last time we have a new personal best or PB. You'll see that it says previous segment and sum of best segments. So red means that we are slower overall than our PB. So we're at first a second behind, then 12 seconds behind in pace. The light red of 7.9 means that we saved time on the split, but we're still down overall. The solid green color means that we saved time in the split, and we are also ahead overall. There's a light green color, so if we lost time in the split, but we're still ahead of our PB pace. And the golds that you see is the thing that you really want to see when you're on good pace, because that means that's the fastest we've ever done that particular segment ever. So gold Dream Nail means that was the fastest I've ever done Dream Nail, and we almost golded Watcher Knights, which means we about tied the fastest I've ever done that section of the game. At least on these splits that are recorded, but this is the only set of splits I have for low percent. The sum of best is just the addition of every gold split. So if you're looking to see, like, how good you are and how consistent you are, getting close to your sum of best means that you're more consistent, and having a lowered sum of best means that you're learning more about what it would take to play the game optimally. So this is, I guess I can probably say, like, the most boring split, because even in any percent, it's a lot of, like, walking. You're just going to get the lantern, because, you know, we already did the dark room, but we get that lantern in order to have access to Crystal Peaks. That Husk Sentry can block the doorway, and it's a real pain in the ass if he does, because it can really ruin a run. Don't have to worry about gate storage and getting that little, like, dash thingy, because thankfully, I guess, we do not have the dash. So this is kind of the break in the run where you can relax. You can bleed a lot of time with suboptimal movement, but the plus or minus is like, you know, maybe 10 seconds either way, which is a lot for a speed run, but for this kind of run, like, I mean, you can be plus 10, plus 20, plus 1 minute. It's really, really hard to hit every single trick. So this isn't really the split that's going to make or break runs unless you're going at the very highest level. So we talked to Lem, just like we do in any percent. Shoutouts to Lem, and shoutouts to Leth, who popped into my chat one day, who voiced Lem, and also the Nail Sage. Man, I love this game, and I love Team Cherry. Shoutouts to Team fucking Cherry. All y'all out there. What a beautifully done video game. So, we found some relics before, very deliberately. We have 2 of them, and we sell them both to Lem here. He gives us a lot of lore. I can't understand what he's saying here, and even if I could, I would still try to skip it as fast as possible. So since we didn't go up the normal way, we're going to have to manually walk, dodge a few Husk Sentries along the way, and then we're going to fight the Gorgeous Husk for the last bit of geo we need, because the Lantern costs 1,800, and the last stag that we get, because remember, we actually got the stag that's normally the last stag in the game, because you've already been to the Hera area. So the new last stag that we get is actually the one in Queen Station. So instead of going to go do QGA like in any percent, we go all the way down to Fog Canyon and take that stag directly to Hera in order to finish out the game. So here's where the fun times end, and we're done walking, and we have to do yet another fireball skip just to get over here. At least that guy was in a good position. So the cadence for the Gorgeous Husk that's behind here that drops 420 geo is right, up, left, fire, left, up, right, fire. Except you don't get as many doubles without the Shaman Stone. You need to be up a little higher, so you have to do a little bit of a jump, otherwise it doesn't work. You'll see. That doubled. You'll also see me hit 4 times in order to make sure that it's farther away, especially because I don't mind having extra soul, because I'll just continually tap Fireball at the end. Especially if it's on the left side. If one more of those doubles, we would have been on the right and killed it to the left, so we wouldn't have had to cross over into the room one last time. Would have been a small optimization. So we have 4 masks here, which is almost as many as we can have, but I always like having, you know, 3 or 4 masks instead of 1 or 2, because there's a hallway here where if you get hit twice, it gets a lot scarier. I know in Homothety's record, he actually has 1 mask for this entire section. Also on Seal Soul. Yeah, that's the wrong hallway. We're gonna go the right hallway now. Free heals on elevators are really nice. So you'll notice that I healed even though I didn't quote need to, because we still haven't been to where you normally go in the very beginning of the game where Gruz Mother is, because we avoid it by going all the way through Blue Lake, which is where we're headed to now in order to go get the Lumafly Lantern, which means we need to go past where Salubra is, we need to save Sly, we need to go past all of the Explodey guys, which do 2 masks of damage each, which means I do not want to lose a run to falling into an explosion into another explosion this late into the run after doing all of that really difficult stuff. So always better to have more masks. I also call this wet dirt myth a lot because you need to hop for almost the same reason, is that you're on regular movement speed instead of swim speed when you're hopping through here. So you're just trying to make sure that every single time you land, you just jump as soon as possible. It's a little bit faster with dash, and by a little bit I mean a lot. Past Salubra, that's where you would have done Shade Skip in the very beginning of the game to get the, there's one of the Explodey guys. You would have done Shade Skip in the very beginning of the game in order to get the Dream Nail in the first place, and now we're doing all that backwards and getting up here. So this is how we skipped Gruz Mother, that's the 1%. More of a pain than most other percentages, except for the ones that are useful. I still wonder who Esme is, because Sly mentions her. Here's the infected statue room. Don't worry, we'll be back to here on our way momentarily. Because while Lumafly Lantern is my least favorite split in the run, the Crystal Heart is one of my favorite splits in the run. The thing that actually got me to run low percent, I'm pretty sure, was the Dark Room, which I thought was really cool, the triple Fireball skip into Fungal Waste, and this entire split of Crystal Heart, you don't have the dash. So the last room is the most nail-biting room, and you absolutely can die even if you practice it a whole lot. I know I did all earlier today. Still jumping. Only recently realized that's still faster. We don't jump over here in order to activate this lift a little bit sooner. Now we're on our way. So the infected statue room in any percent and low percent is deceptively simple. You go up the wall, you go to the right, and you win. But if you ever played this game, you know that like this is a very, very specific sequence through this room. If you mess this up just by a little bit and get hit by that or the tick-tick over there, or don't jump far enough left, and you start getting hit, the room can go really, really bad really quick. I've actually died in that room. Look down, look down. So you'll see that the gate moved immediately out of the way, and we didn't need to wait for the thing to go down first. It's that gate and the other stag stations that we get that animation interrupt in. So this place is really simple. If a conveyor belt is moving in the direction that we want it to go, which is to the right, then we stand on it, otherwise we're jumping. No Pogax, I'm sorry. Mostly because Pogax requires the dash, so it's not like I wouldn't have gone for it. I would have if this was any percent. So this room cycle is also a little bit different than any percent, because in any percent you can get up here and avoid all the lasers and get the God Cycle or the Pixel and make sure you don't take any damage. Here it's a little bit trickier. It is possible to make that, it's just very, very difficult. So every once in a while I'll still take a safety heal, not over here, but afterwards. So this is an intentional damage boost in order to get past this laser in order to get to this cycle. And then I am going to heal here, because getting knocked from laser or spike into the despawn, like at the bottom, means that you die. So now we can do that one time without losing the run. So that heal is really important, because if we get knocked by a laser down past all these platforms we're going to be jumping on top of, then we still have one chance to save the run. The thought of that is scary, but it's a whole lot better than losing the run, especially because I usually put this on Steel Soul mode, which means that it deletes your save file. So this is my favorite room in the entire run. It starts with a very non-traditional, kind of strange-looking jump off the side of this platform, and then another 2 fireball skip in order to get past what surely the developers wanted us to dash. So the reason we get the soul over there, it actually isn't because we want more soul, even though that is kind of nice. It's that we get the good cycle through this room. So you'll notice that I'm just missing every single laser. So that was all really clean and good. But unfortunately, in a category like low percent, one mistake, that's all it takes. So remember that safety heal we did earlier? Definitely really, really nervous at this part, but hey, it's a whole lot better than a dead run. So yeah, we may have lost a good 20 seconds or so in this entire section now. But I'll take it over the alternative. Now we have the Crystal Heart. The Crystal Heart is the thing that makes us dash very, very quickly. It also allows us to skip Isma's Tear, which allows us to go into Acid, because the couple of areas that we need to clear large gaps, or in the archives when we're going to get one of the second Dreamers, we can get across from the wall onto the other world, and you don't actually dunk into the Acid. I say you don't, but we'll see whether or not I do. It is possible to not dunk into the Acid. No Menderbug. Feel sad, man. These flies are also RNG, but they're a lot more dangerous than the other flies because we want to retain as many masks as possible during this section. So normally 90% you dash over here, but since we don't have that, we have to pogo. And if you get caught on the right side of that, then you end up taking damage. So I actually heal here to make sure that it goes smoothly. The drop down here, ideally you have the dash, and you can drop down in one continuous motion. But we can't do that, so we're going to play it a little bit safer. Now, the boss of the Archives, Umu, is a giant jellyfish that operates off of cycles. So in any percent, you can famously 2-cycle Umu because you have the Shaman Stone, and you have just enough damage if you get double hits in the fireballs in the very end, very complicated pattern, in order to deal enough damage to just barely make 2 cycles. In low percent, because we're nerfed, we can do the same thing, but in 3 cycles. So getting a 3-cycle fight is optimal, and getting a very early 4-cycle is still pretty good, because you're only losing like 15-20 seconds usually. So we hit these jellyfish in order to have just enough soul with 1 Dream Nail hit to start the fight with full soul. Bless RNG. Fast attack. That's nice. So the positions that I'm moving in over here are actually very, very specific because I want it to move in a certain pattern for these 3 attacks so that after the conclusion of this one, which hits 8 times, you can count it, and I often do. You go to the middle platform and sidle on the left side a few times. There are a lot of different setups by a lot of runners, but this is the optimal strategy. So it would have been better if we got the other attack because we wouldn't have taken damage there, but it's alright. We stand on the left side and we Crystal Dash to the right. For the second cycle. Good second cycle. There's something I didn't mention is that every single cycle, Umu can give you an extra attack, like just what just happened to us, and it throws everything off. In a worst case scenario, it can kill runs or make it so you don't get the 2-cycle. Hopefully it just adds a little bit of time. So we could have killed that cycle, but since we got the extra attack and we weren't in the right position, we have to go to another cycle. And get another extra attack, which is pretty funny. So after this extra attack, we get back onto the middle platform, and Umu is almost dead, so we do Nail Fireball, Nail Fireball. It only took a little bit. We go into our menu here in order to create less lag. And then since we're minus 2 minutes and 8 seconds ahead, I apparently thought it best to dunk into the acid a few times to make sure that we didn't PB by quite as much. So, you can enjoy that. Notice how I'm healing after every time, and it's very convenient that I have enough soul to do so, because if not, if I had 1 mask, and sometimes you do after that fight, since you take damage tanks in order to get in the right position, it's entirely possible to lose the run after you kill Umu. Shoutouts to Quirrell also, he's the homie, he doesn't get enough credit. You haven't played this game, and you don't know what's going on, or the lore, who Quirrell is, or why he has a mask on his head, or why there's a sleep guy in a vase, and we hit him with this nail thing that we picked up from a bug hidden in a cave, and then we attack him in his dream. Play the game. It's a very, very good video game. It's a good Metroidvania. Definitely play the game. So we got 2 out of the 3, and we only have 1 left, so the run is almost over at this point. The only thing we have left to do is go to the Beast's Den and do the exact same thing to the last little mask blocking that door. Thankfully, I guess for most people, here's a pitch for low percent, right? A lot of people hate QGA because it's one of the hardest tricks in any percent. In low percent, you don't have to do QGA, see? So it's easier and more fun. Unfortunately, you don't have the dash, so things like this can still happen, where, you can't get to the other side as fast. But you don't have to do QGA. All you need to do is buy the stag, and then be on your merry way. This is also another situation where I'm going to be gathering a little bit of extra soul, because you want to have full soul going into beast den to make sure that that you can kill the things in your way as you're going up. They're called devouts. But we don't actually care about how many masks we have, because there's a bench directly next to the stag station we're going to go buy for 120 geo. So in between hitting the bell and waiting for the stag to arrive, we have time for a free bench. Also, we have to crystal dash there because you don't have the normal dash. Anything past 4 dashes, it's faster than its regular dash, but we crystal dash over much shorter distances in this category. Shoutouts to Pantalooney for teaching me about the fast spell, and every other trick I've ever learned when learning any percent, because he was one of the OGs who was convincing me to play this video game and stream more and play more. Same with Arlo, and the legendary Bagel, and Conra, and Palm, and Pest. A lot of people. If I keep naming them, I'm going to forget someone. And Pisces. So here we go, the Beast Den, the final area of the game before we go off and fight the final boss. We crystal dash to the right here. Now there is a small chance that this devout actually goes to the left instead of the right, or aggroes immediately, and if that happens, there is enough space in order to pogo over it instead of needing to kill it. Also, since we don't have Shaman Stone, it's a little bit different, because normally with Shaman Stone, 1 damage boost in order to hit it a few times and then get the fireball is enough to kill it. But in here, because we do not have the Shaman Stone and we're nerfed, our fireball does 15 damage instead of 20, and our nail still only does 5, and the devouts have 100 HP. That's the damage table. That scared me, even though it's me, and I'm commentating me. It means that we have to play it a little more careful, and you need a little bit more masks going into here. So I have another buffer of 1 mask, just in case I take damage again, because I want to have 3 masks going into the last devout. Because you cannot damage tank past devouts, you have to kill the last one no matter what. And we hit that to make sure that it doesn't move back and screw us up more. So with these last final few fireballs and then a couple more damage tanks in order to slash through, we actually do that because you take 2 masks of damage from the devout. But if you face plant into it, you take 1 mask of damage and you have iframes and you don't take 2 masks of damage. So I know that our splits say that we lost a good 30 seconds right now, but I think that this actually went incredibly well because we lost 30 seconds by dunking into acid 3 mortal times. But you know what? I'll take it. A run that's almost 2 minutes ahead is a pretty good run. Going into the final split of the game, the only thing we need to do is use that stag station and go back to Dirtmouth and then go face the Hollow Knight. And that will be GG, and we'll know that it's low percent and valid for no major glitches, low percent, if it says 11% completion. That's what we're looking for. So taking that hit of damage isn't that bad because sometimes I'll bench anyway to make sure that there's a very, very small percent chance that you can hard lock in the loading screen before the final boss of the game, which is very, very, very bad. Second time with that awful jump. So there's actually a bench right beforehand that the game will lock you to anyway, so if you happen to die in the final boss fight, you still respawn right outside. But if you hard lock, that is not the case, and if the auto splitter and timer don't restart, your run's dead, but it's an extra safety to make sure that you can complete the run without needing to bleed even more time. And with that, we enter the Temple of the Black Egg. We have woken up our 3 buddies. about to go kill the final boss of the game. If I can get up that tiny, tiny ledge. Nail Zero doing 5 damage, Fireball doing 15 damage, no dash to speak of, no Shaman Stone. Which means that we're not going to get those fancy doubles you normally see by when the knight dashes forwards or dashes backwards, because we do not have the capability. So we're going to break these chains, drop them down, and do our best. If you like this fight in any percent, it's even more fun in low percent, because it's harder and takes longer. So you'll notice that a big thing in this fight is actually managing the distance between you and the knight, because it isn't as bad if the knight dashes away from you in any percent, because normally you can get a double fireball, dash, and you're right up against him again. But in this category, you just kind of bleed out time while you wait. So using fireballs more readily as they're available is more relevant. You see how we waited for him to come to us there? Dang these parries. Healing for safety, because I didn't want to lose a run on minus 140 pace. So this is random over here, but it's relatively safe if you play it really, really careful on one of the sides and keep fireballing. You'll also notice in this category that we do not go for stream skip, because we cannot get over fast enough. As with any percent, if he's in the middle of stabbing himself, everything does 1 damage, so you won't see us using the fireball during that time. Normally they can go for triple hits here, but without the dash, it's a little bit more difficult. GG. We hold down the A button and wait for the auto splitter to stop. This was also a gold split, so it was a really good fight. Low percent, no major glitches, Hollow Knight in 46:35 without loads. The in-game timer will appear on the screen. GG. Thanks for watching. While I'm at it, shoutouts to Spoonie for convincing me that this was a really good video game when I watched her playing it on her channel on Twitch. And shoutouts to Danotage for gifting it to me in a giveaway after I popped in one time, and it took me several months to play, and now I can't stop playing it for hundreds of hours. It's a lot of fun to play low percent, it's a lot of fun to play Hollow Knight, and it was a lot of fun to make this video, so thanks to Team Cherry, and for everyone out there in my community and others in the Hollow Knight community. If you're seriously looking into running low percent, probably not, but any other Hollow Knight category, I highly encourage you to start getting active on Twitch, to join the official Hollow Knight Discord, because there's a whole lot of helpful people in that as well, not just my own Discord, not just my own Twitch channel. If you want to see more content like this, go to twitch.tv/MIT_battery. That's where a lot of things live. And you should follow everyone else that you interact with in chat if you do happen to drop by there, because that's who taught me a whole lot when I was starting to play the game. Shoutouts to Kane, too, just in case you're watching. Hope everyone had fun. I know I did. .46:35 is our time going on the leaderboard. Still second place, but a considerable PB from the one on there. Our IGT is 52:14. We're at 11% completion. That's low percent.